Hello, and welcome to the first episode of Triple D, Debate Digest at Dean, where we talk about all things with opposing viewpoints. With topics ranging from women's sports to pop culture, we cover all the things that you want to hear about. I'm Natalie, joined by my lovely co host Miro.
Hi everyone, I'm Miro. Today we have a bit of a controversy to unpack with you all. We can't wait to get into it, so let's get started.
We hope you guys are ready for this one. Today's topic of discussion is one that has taken over the interests of 84% of Americans, a genre of content that 50% of Americans consume on the daily. True crime, which is a genre of nonfiction media that focuses on real life criminal cases, diving deeper into the crimes, investigation, motivations, and even the lives of victims all around the world. True crime content creates a space in society for the average individual to fully indulge in the investigative process, allowing the everyday person to tap into their natural human curiosity within the darkest parts of society. True crime offers mystery, thrill, and motivation towards solving what feels like a complex puzzle with millions of pieces. It also creates a space which allows for awareness and observation of potential threats and dangerous situations that nobody ever thinks they'll ever be a part of, which to some people provides a sense of safety and security as they learn about the red flags that may be present in different environments from the comfort of their own home, of course. Now, when we look deeper into why this subject to true crime is so riveting and surrounded by so much fascination, we'll see that there's four main motives that attract the majority of attention. The first of which being the element of mystery. The when, who, why, what, and how are critical to the aspect of mystery. Everyone wants to know what happened, why it happened, and who did it. Viewers feel compelled to answer these questions, and they will search until they have found the answers. And that's not only for themselves, but because of an emotional connection that was made with the victims, their families, or even the nature of the crime. The second motive of interest is understanding the motivation behind the crime. Like previously mentioned, everybody wants to know why the event occurred. Even after the crime has been solved and an individual has been prosecuted, the question of why is still commonly present in people's minds. People are drawn to the understanding of the psychological reasoning behind a criminal's actions, especially when they're horrific. The third motivation is the accessibility of true crime content. According to Edison Research, in the year of 2024, true crime was the third most popular genre of podcasts, behind comedy being the first and news being the second. And that's because of thousands of different podcasts that Americans are offered within the genre. The topic has also morphed itself into popular documentary series like Monsters, The Menendez Brothers, Dahmer, and Woman of the Hour, which have all been produced by Netflix. It has become easier than ever to learn about the darkest stories. And lastly, the fourth reason is the adrenaline, the rush of adrenaline that people feel from solving these complex crimes. While this may not be true for most, the actual crime itself and all the graphic details that follow can be quite thrilling to some. On the other hand of that, the adrenaline of working towards an answer that seems impossible to find, like solving a cold case, can be enticing for individuals to follow. Overall, in my opinion, true crime is very interesting to follow. While I always feel empathetic for the victim as well as their families that are involved, it is a subject that presents itself as almost a guilty pleasure, something that's so horrifying in its true nature, something that can happen to literally anyone at any moment with no warnings, can also be so thrilling and compelling.
We know that millions indulge in this genre, but is it right to turn real life tragedies into entertainment? The truth is, true crime is not ethical, and I'm here to break down why. Americans' obsession with this genre is not new. True crime literature has existed since the 1600s, but the form has shifted from pamphlets and books now to digital media. And platforms like Netflix have capitalized on this, but at what cost? Today, we will see why there are five main reasons that true crime is unethical. The first being a distortion of reality and glamorization. True crime shows often present a skewed version of events, omitting crucial details or dramatizing aspects to increase entertainment value. Netflix and similar companies have basically mastered a formula that blends real-life crimes with dramatic reenactments, and this is what makes true crime so popular. The problem is that these productions distort reality. A documentary should present factual events, but can we really say that what is happening in these series, because they glamorize and sometimes even manipulate details just to boost viewership? Take glamorization, for example. Zac Efron playing Ted Bundy in Extremely Wicked, Shockingly Evil, and Vile is a prime example. Casting a well-known heartthrob when a YouGov poll says that 61% of women watch more true crime than men. Netflix is doing this on purpose by, instead of raising awareness about his victims, we get this obsession with Ted Bundy as charming and handsome rather than a monstrous serial killer that he was. The next reason is victim exploitation. True crime media often sensualizes victims' pain without consent from their family. And it's not just Bundy. Netflix Dahmer Monster, the Jeffrey Dahmer story, hit 1 billion views in 60 days in 2022. And what happened next? People dressed up as Dahmer for Halloween. That's incredibly disrespectful to victims' families. They didn't consent to their loved ones' stories being turned into entertainment, yet Netflix profits while re-traumatizing them. This has led to several cases where families have spoken out against documentaries and dramas that they feel exploit their loved ones' tragedy for entertainment and profit. These killers become household names while their victims remain in the shadows. The next is, beyond that, the impact on viewers is significant. So the negative impact on mental health. Studies show crime consumption can lead to heightened anxiety and hypervigilance. Dr. Childs, a psychologist with the Cleveland Clinic, notes that constantly consuming murder stories can change your worldview. Fans of the genre report feeling on edge, obsessively locking their doors, and fearing every white van that goes past. The psychological effects go deeper than just hypervigilance. Regular exposure to violent crime stories can decentralize individuals, making them more numb to real-world violence. When consuming murder stories becomes habitual, like listening to them every day, we risk normalizing these horrors rather than recognizing them as brutal, devastating crimes that they are. The commercialization and profit over ethics can turn this real suffering into like a glamorization and commercialization. The victim of Ted Bundy, for example, these are girls with real lives and dreams and aspirations, but in the end, they're always remembered as Ted Bundy's victims. Even in their death, he holds a power over them, and that's truly unacceptable. So where do we go from here? Can true crime ever really be ethical? I think it would require major changes, prioritizing victims' voices, gaining consent from family, avoiding the glamorization from companies like Netflix, and shifting focus away from the glorifying murderers. And then I think until then, true crime remains exploitative. So at what point does our fascination with true crime become complicity in its harm? It's time to reconsider how we consume these stories. So this is my reminder to you to stay critical and stay ethical in your viewership.
So, with 50% of Americans being invested in the topic of true crime, that leaves another 50% of Americans who are not at all. With this topic being so complex and containing so many different layers that need to be considered, it is critical that people understand this is entirely nonfiction. These are human beings who had something so horrific happen to them, a moment in life that nobody even wants to imagine. Yet 50% of Americans are still deeply invested.
A topic that incorporates the darkest area of psychology with the bright light of humanity. A topic that starts off so positively yet ends so negatively. So we leave you with this question of morality. Is true crime ethical? Is it appropriate to be interested in such a dark genre?